So, you want to learn how to have deep and meaningful conversations. Well, I have 5 tips from one of the best in the business, Charlamagne the God. Charlamagne just may be the best person to analyze if you want to learn how to have deep and meaningful conversations. I mean, this guy has some of the best interviews out, and they are always more than the surface level media conversations you typically get. In this video, I'm going to focus mainly on the conversations he's posted recently on his YouTube channel. If you're not familiar with Charlamagne, he's a New York Times best-selling author. He's a co-host of The Breakfast Club, which is the world's most dangerous morning show, co-host of the Brilliant Idiots podcast, and he's also...
You're the self-proclaimed prince of pissing people off, the ruler of rubbing you the wrong way, the architect of aggravation.
Now, he definitely has some of those characteristics as well, but I'm going to focus on his interview skills and break down his conversations and give you 5 tips on how to have deep and meaningful conversations. Be sure to stick around to the end because I saved the best tip for last. Tip number 5, get familiar.
And I said, the one thing I think people haven't really had a conversation with you about is your growth as a man.
What is Schoolboy Q learned over the past couple of years in between albums? As an artist, as a man?
Now let's pause right there. Charlamagne is a celebrity, so many times he has the benefit of knowing his guests before they sit down. But even if he knows them personally, this doesn't deter Charlamagne from asking personal questions on camera. Let's go back to the Gucci Mane interview for a second.
And I said, the one thing I think people haven't really had a conversation with you about is your growth as a man.
Now that's interesting. Your growth as a man. Charlamagne isn't asking him about music or current events or drama. He wants to explore a topic that's rarely discussed with Gucci Mane, his growth and evolution as a man. Charlamagne does this quite often where he isn't concerned about your profession. He wants to know who you are as a person, your well-being or your background. Here's some more examples of that.
Seen a lot of pictures of you lately out and about. You know, so the first question is, how are you?
I'm feeling good.
The last time I think people heard about you in the news was Kanye West was having a mental breakdown. So mentally, where are you?
Speaking of the NBA, November 5th, what was that, 2017?
Yep, 2017.
You said you had your very first panic attack. Talk to us about that.
Yeah.
Pause. So this is how you apply tip number 5. Ask more personal questions about lifestyle, backgrounds, growth, personal development, and less surface level questions like favorite things, hobbies, jobs, gossip. If you really want to have meaningful conversations, you have to have better questions to ask. Go deep. Which segue us right into tip number 4. Tip number 4, dig deeper. Charlamagne does this one or two ways. One, by asking thought-provoking questions like this.
As an immigrant, do you feel responsible to advocate for other immigrants through your company?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
You got the job.
Right. How did you build up the confidence to not compromise and be confident with how you look and who you are, everything about yourself?
Damn, that's a hard question, Brother Charlamagne, the God. It's a hard question.
Dasha Polanka even acknowledges that this is a tough question, but what this does is open the door to deeper conversations. The second way that Charlamagne digs deep is that he doesn't let anyone get away with a simple answer. If he isn't satisfied with the response, he will say something like this.
Expound on that a little bit, cause
I don't get it. What didn't you get?
you know, if that makes sense. What do you mean? Break that down.
It was incredible. The feeling was incredible. You know, well,
if you watch a lot of Charlamagne interviews, he does this a lot. Expound on, explain. And what this does is it makes the other person have to describe more, dive deeper, and ultimately open up. He uses these first 2 tips in the Gucci Mane interview a lot because he isn't known as someone to open up. So Charlamagne came prepared to kind of peel back the layers of the onion with these techniques. It's almost as if it's a challenge for him.
Come back sometime.
How did that make you want to change and evolve, knowing that you had somebody that loved you like that?
You just made me help my, you had to be more responsible. You got to hold yourself accountable because now you got a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got a partner you see every day, and it's like, it's a responsibility. Being in a relationship, man, with a grown person who maturing about their business, it make you like, you got to be mature. You have to mature fast.
Do you think you had like a survivor's remorse towards the earlier stages of your career?
How would you describe survival?
Like coming from the hood and being successful, and then having probably a lot of your partners in jail, dead, and maybe feeling a sense of guilt about it a little bit. That you the one that made it.
Share it with the people I felt like I started with, but you know, those relationships they deteriorated.
I wonder that because, you know, the person you became, I was like, do you feel like you owe that to the universe to be your best self? Because you got an opportunity.
I do.
To still be out.
And that was all within the first 10 minutes of the interview. Charlamagne wasted no time, diving right to the core of the matter, and the entire interview is phenomenal. So check it out if you haven't already. So how do you apply tip number 4? Simply ask them to elaborate or explain any answers that they give you, which will ultimately make them open up. So tip number 3, timely jokes.
Hey, I'm Charlamagne the God. Of course, this is Kevin Love. You can tell by the height who's who. But
Clearly, you didn't find me interesting enough to put me on Master of None.
You know, there's still time. We might do another season.
Jokes are easy to understand, they're easy to apply, and we all know what laughter can do for another person. It lightens the mood, it puts people at ease, and it overall just puts people in a comfortable situation, which allows them to open up. Now, moving right along to tip number 2. Tip number 2, look to learn.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You put me on to what Afro-Latinos were. So
You
how was
remember that?
I do remember that.
That's a good thing. I love that we can learn from each other. We can educate each other. I'm always
Absolutely.
open to learning new things. I
I
think.
remember that conversation because when I asked you, because I never had heard the term. So I said, what is Afro-Latino? And everybody called me stupid and ignorant and dumb. And I'm like, that's why you ask questions?
So many people are like, we want to, there's a quote I have in the Ego book. It's like, any fool can learn by experience. I want to learn from the experiences of others.
He always quotes you on that.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we're
I think
built.
that's what being informed is about, is like learning and unlearning, which is even harder to do.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing more unlearning as I get older. You know what I'm saying?
Which is
I shouldn't say that on here, but that's actually a book I want to do.
Is what?
Because we always, pick up books based off successful people. You know what I mean? What about the things
books about failure?
Yeah, what about the things? No, what about the things you learned from people who didn't just fail? They are real failures, like crackheads.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? No, for real. Like you can learn a lot from crackheads in the hood. Like I want to write something from that perspective.
Knowledge is power, and learning is the key to success. Obviously, Charlamagne uses conversations as a way to learn or unlearn old habits. And what that does is create personal growth and development. Each meaningful conversation we have is like a new book read in terms of lessons learned and life impact. One conversation could change everything. So how do we apply tip number 2? Go into every conversation to learn from that person, and you do that by asking meaningful, thought-provoking questions. Which brings me to the number 1 tip: listen.
I just have high hopes, low expectations. And that's been my key to happiness. I see trying as winning, and everything else on top of that is just cake. And so I think we need to put more emphasis on that so people actually try and live their dreams.
like when I see branding, I see insecurity. I see people buying security, buying it back through a brand, protection, a badge. Don't mess with me in high school, I got Supremo,
Let's look at how things were reported. When you report on a mass shooting, you report on a disturbed young man who had never shown signs of. When you report on a black kid shooting back at a kid who jumped him, you'll go find any dirt on that kid.
Absolutely.
When you report on a black kid who was murdered by a white vigilante, you'll find any dirt. When you report on a black kid who was illegally stopped by a policeman, engaged and murdered in the streets.
In all of Charlamagne's interviews, he is doing more listening than he is talking. And I mean intensely listening. He is listening to them to learn from what they are saying. He isn't listening to get to the next question. He doesn't ask questions and then not let them finish their answer. He always allows a person to finish their thoughts and their speech before he moves on to the next thing. Oftentimes, somebody will stop and have a pregnant pause, and Charlamagne will let them think it out. He will not interject his thoughts or his words into their thought process. He allows them to think and speak. And if you can allow other people to speak and you listen intently, you will always have meaningful and deep conversations. So I said all of that to say, be patient and be thoughtful, and then you can have deep and meaningful conversations like Charlamagne the God. So remember, get familiar, dig deep, tell timely jokes, look to learn, and absolutely listen. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more video breakdowns on celebrities and the way that they communicate with others, please like, comment, and subscribe down below and let me know in the comment section what celebrity you would like to see next. I really appreciate you sticking with me all the way to the end. And if you enjoyed this content, please share it with a friend and hit that subscribe button.